Hey, Jamie Stenhouse here, founder of Systemizing.com, and today I'll be walking you through our accountability template. This is something that we provide for our clients and something that we help to install into their companies from all team sizes and all industries. So you're in for a treat today as you're going to see how to set it all up, how to implement it, and hopefully how to, of course, increase your team's accountability so that you're not having to look over their shoulder and follow up constantly. Now, before we jump into this, I do have a bit of a speaking impediment, so if I talk a little bit strange or a little bit unique, that is probably the reason why. So let's get straight into it. Now, you will have the access to this help guide here on how to use it, the reasons behind why we use it in certain categories, and how to get the most out of it too. And you can, of course, grab a copy of the sheet through clicking on this link right here, and that should take you to a screen that looks something like this. So if you haven't yet, make sure you come inside here, grab that link, and then of course you will be good to go. There is a lot of helpful information in terms of how to get the most out of your team using this template, right? How to increase accountability properly, and there is an actual protocol for that. That is, of course, explained inside here. How to actually ensure that, okay, if there is slippage in a task, duty, or process that isn't being held accountable for, how should we address that? How should we approach that, right? So on and so on. All of this is inside here for you, ready to use, and I think you'll get a lot out of it. Now, I am not going to go through any of that today. What I will be showing you is how to set up your accountability template and dashboard. So, essentially, we need to figure out what departments we want to hold accountable, what team member from those departments we want to hold accountable, and what activity, task, or process we want to hold them accountable for as well. So when you first open up this template, I strongly suggest going to File and making a copy. This will ensure that you have a copy of it and you can begin to input your own information. So let's start there. Now, depending on the categories and teams that you want to hold accountable, I would be looking at problem areas as opposed to areas that are quite okay. Now, this sounds like common sense. However, you would be surprised in regards to the amount of companies that come to us who are trying to increase accountability on a team that doesn't really need it, or that increasing it would not bring a yield, either in return, additional profit, freed up time, so on and so on. So you want to look at a team of yours, or a team member, of course, who increasing accountability, ensuring they are actually following through on their duties, and tracking that would either increase profit, drive revenue, free up time for yourself or the team member, or increase the throughput of your company, right? How many products or services are you able to now push through? So we'll start off with a simple example. Let's say the department is the admin team, right? Someone on your front desk, right? That is quite common for a lot of our clients in the service industry. We'll just leave it as the admin team for now. And let's call the admin team member John Smith. All right. Let's say John Smith has been at your company for some time. They know all the processes off by heart. They don't need any more team training or any more processes. It's just about holding them accountable, because you've seen John Smith do really well, and then you've seen him recently start to drop a few balls, right? Maybe something's happening in his life. Maybe there's new complexity, a health issue. Hopefully not, touch wood, right? So we've seen that, John Smith has been great at handling the inventory, signing for incoming deliveries, handling clients rescheduling, all that. However, there's a few duties that John is currently dropping, and these duties are the ones we want to track, assuming that if those duties are handled every day, and they are of course completed each day, each week, each month, right, that it would improve things for you and the company, then those are the ones that we want to track. So maybe it is, let's say, updating the order sheet. Maybe you take orders over the phone or in store, right? Maybe it is also clearing weekly invoices, right? maybe John is also responsible for the end of day reports. If you do not run end of day reports for each of your teams and companies, please set that up. It is so important. If you need help, reach out to me. I'm happy to send you a template or walk you through that process for it. It is something that we teach and preach to our clients. So if that intrigues you, please do run end of day reports so that you know what is happening, KPIs, so on and so on. From there as well, you also might be looking at, let's say you need to upload some call recordings, right? Maybe that's just a standard protocol in your industry. If you be in insurance or finance, right? Ensuring that you have those call recordings stored correctly could be quite helpful as well. And maybe we need to ensure that we need to update and possibly update or order inventory and or order inventory is another process too as well. So these are just some examples to start with. Now you can also set this up for, let's say, your sales team. Maybe we have Smith John, right? A cousin of John Smith in here as well. And, same kind of thing. Maybe we decide that, Smith John needs to, let's say, follow up with yesterday's meetings, right? This could be either to... Actually, here's a good point. You want to really clarify what that process and what that activity is. So this is not good. As we teach and preach at Systems and Teams, you do not want to leave room for interpretation, room for assumption, right? You want to have the process absolutely clear so that anyone unskilled can come in and use that process for your company. And if you don't think that can be done, we have close to 1,100 clients over the last 8 years who have been amazed at how they can systemize their company so it's no longer reliant on them or highly skilled A players as well. That's not to say that you shouldn't hire A players, however, your company shouldn't be reliant on them. So the reason I'm saying that is this is not a good thing to track. What does this mean? Okay, well, let's sort of clarify that a little bit more. Maybe it could be for a sales team, confirm tomorrow's meetings with prospects, right? That's certainly a lot more clearer. Send a follow-up. Maybe you're sending a follow-up slide deck to today's meetings, right? Again, you would be also updating your end of day reports. You would be uploading your sales call recordings. Let's say you would be updating your call/meeting tracker. If you don't have this for your sales team, that's a problem. So again, you should be doing end of day reports. You should be correlating those call recordings. You should be tracking your calls in terms of short rate, completion, reschedules, follow-ups, cancellations, deals won, deals lost, so on and so on. If you need a process for this, reach out to us. That's literally what we do. So here's how you can set up for different departments and different team members as well. Maybe you want to do, let's say, for example, maybe you have a design team, right? You can put, let's say, Harold Smith, right? And then from there you'd have his tasks and duties. His tasks and duties inside here as well, right? Tasks, so on and so on. So it's pretty customizable. You can have as many departments and teams as you like. I wouldn't track too much to start with, right? We want to track things that we can actually have an impact on. There are short feedback loops, right? So something to not track is, let's say, for example, new client project for ABC company. It's like, that is such a broad term. What are we tracking in that? Are we tracking the progress? Well, shouldn't there be a separate project, a separate process to track project process anyway? Are we tracking certain tasks within that project, right? Are we tracking the communication? Are we tracking the This is not designed to track entire projects. It is designed to track singular tasks and processes, because when you track and you optimize singular tasks and processes, well, then you start to develop a real company that is grounded on systems and processes, not just on people we rent and hire, right? So for that example, maybe you're tracking the daily cost for ABC project, right? If you want to do it. Anyway, let's show you how this works. So we've put in our departments, our teams, and the activities or tasks. Pretty simple. At the end of each day, you, or ideally the individual, depending on their schedule, flexibility, all of that. I would say if you're starting out in this and you've got a good relationship with these team members, then having them complete this is perfectly feasible. Now, a lot of the time, larger companies haven't got that close of a relationship with individuals on their team, and there's this sort of like mentality of, I need to keep my job and do just enough to not get fired. Now, if that's happening on your team, or you feel like that is the case, then please do speak to us. There are several immediate improvement cultural processes that we can plug and play into your company, so keep that in mind. If that is happening though, I would suggest that you as the team leader, as a CEO, fill this out on the behalf of your team. If you have a good relationship with your team members and you are there to serve your team, a lot of CEOs think that their team works for them, but in reality, the CEO, the team lead, should work for the team, right? It's our job as the person in charge to clear the path for the team, to make things easier for the team, right? To answer their questions, improve tools and processes and protocols, to make the team's job easier, because when the team's job is easier, our job is easier too as well. It's not about a top-down hierarchy. It's about how can we clear the path for the team, right? Because ultimately the actual team is driving the company each day. So it's pretty important that we, try to make their driving journey as easy as we can. So if you have that kind of relationship with your team, they can fill it out. If you're not there yet, all good. You can fill it out at the end of each day. Essentially, you're going to put in an X if that task was complete, right? And you'll see it flags it at 100% for this individual task. And it gives us the average for the whole week, right? Now, if we keep going down this, right, maybe we see that John's doing everything besides updating the inventory, right? If we randomly fill this out, just ever so briefly and quickly, right, you can see, and also, if John has not completed a task, we just simply put in a dash and that will turn red. Now, on some days, maybe John doesn't have to upload call recordings, right? Maybe John Smith didn't have any calls on Tuesday. Well, we just leave that blank, right? Because if it's blank, it will not decrease the throughput percentage, right? Or the APV, accountability performance of value. If we put in a dash, as you'll see over here, the APV will now drop because that process that should have been completed was not completed. However, if on Tuesday there were no calls to upload, then there's no process to complete. So we just leave that blank. All right, so it's pretty straightforward. Very quickly, you will be able to see, okay, what is being completed and what is not being completed each day. And this will give you the average throughput of each of those processes, right? Now, of course, aiming for 100% is the goal. It's probably not always going to happen, right? There will be things, especially if you're tracking it inside here, because if you're tracking it, it signals that there's a problem, right? If there's a problem, it's probably not going to be 100%. So let's sort of fill this out ever so quickly, and I want to highlight a few things that I think would be helpful to kind of signal what you should be looking for in regards to getting the most from this. Okay, so I've just filled this out more realistically based from one of our recent clients' scenarios. Now, as you can see, we're not tracking Saturdays and Sundays, that's why they're blank. Sometimes there will be a task, maybe if you're a team leader or you have someone coming on a Saturday shift or a Sunday shift, right? Then of course you can easily track those there as well. However, if you're closed over Saturday and Sunday, then you would essentially leave those blank as to not throw off the score at the end. Now, when you fill this out over time, it will give you a few key signals. The first, as I said before, is the throughput or the accountability performance of the APV for each of your tasks, right? So for example, there's a problem with John Smith clearing weekly invoices here, right? I can see that very, very clearly here because that is only at 20%, right? End of day reports is at 40%. Upload call recordings, even though they could have and should have been done on Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday because they're not blank. If these are blank, then there's no problem, right? Because that process was not supposed to be completed. However, because these were filled in with a dash, it signals that that process could have been completed and should have been completed because it was assigned on that day. Now, I just want to touch on, there's a few reasons why a team might not be completing a certain task or duty. The three largest reasons is there is no process for that duty or task, right? And just to confirm, a checklist is not a process. Team training won't replace a process, right? A screen recording or a training video is not a process as well. If you've been on our email list or you've seen my talks and lectures, you know this to be true already. So the first component is that they might not have a process. The next component or handle or hurdle or friction point is that there could be friction between the team and the process. Okay, like, is the process too long, too hard to use? Is it in a place that's hard to get to? Do they have to switch to a Dropbox account, a Google Drive account? Is it hidden in some Slack channel? Is it printed? My goodness, right? There's all this friction between the team and the process. Of course they're not going to use it, right? Or have they assumed that process is incorrect and it's actually been changed and updated, so therefore you need to inform them of that process change, right? So those are the main two issues. The third issue I touched on a little bit in the previous example as well is that, is the process in a place that is easy to use? Is it hosted inside a team portal? Is that process pre-assigned to the team each day? Because these are routine tasks, right? We have them assigned each day here, right? This one is only assigned on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. However, the other processes, if we come back to this example here, the uploading of the call recordings, is assigned every single day. How is that being assigned to them? Is it just their duty and responsibility? Should they just know that that's their job? Are we relying on a organizational chart, which is ridiculously useless in my point of view in terms of generating accountability, right? If you're relying on checklists and training manuals and team training and team meetings, right, you're going to not have a good time coordinating tasks for your team. There's a reason why companies that rely on these things struggle with hiring to keep team members, to generate accountability, and why the owner or the team lead is always handling tasks, redoing it, filling in the blanks, so on and so on. So if you want help with any of that, reach out, schedule a call, and we'll be more than happy to help out. Now, back to this example here, right? So, maybe we see that there's a problem as to why John Smith isn't actually completing certain tasks. Now, I wouldn't personally jump to a certain conclusion yet on the first week, right? I would see how it goes over the second week. Okay, a little bit of improvement, right? From 20% to 40%. 20% to 40%, 60 to 80, okay, but if a improvement, okay, there was no need to really intervene. Let's just keep scrolling across, right? A little bit higher, very good, right? And a little bit higher still, okay, right? So maybe there was some intervention there. Maybe he was just sick or unwell or something happened, right? And typically, as soon as I start to see all greens on either a client's report or someone who has used this and brought it to us, right? As soon as there's a couple of periods where things are being handled, right? This is all being handled from John Smith here. If we keep going across, right? Yep. Keep going across. Yep. That one's yellow. It needs to be looked at. Now it's green. Very good, right? Let's keep going. Green again. Okay. So what I would do at this scenario is I would probably stop tracking John Smith. Why? Because the problem that looked like it was there at the start, right, where he's just missing 3, 4, 5 tasks, right? 5 of these are in red or yellow, seems to have corrected itself. Now, maybe we intervened, right? Maybe we took John Smith through, some of these processes here, right, which you can learn more about. We've sort of really outlined everything for you in these 3 or 4 pages in terms of what needs to be done, right? Or maybe he was going through something, right? So as soon as you start to see a few weeks of green throughput, look, 80% is not 100%. I understand that. And it would be great to have 100%. But you're going to see greater returns improving something from 20 to 80%, right? 2, 4, 6, 8, 4x, as opposed to going from 80% to like 100%, right? Yes, there is room for improvement here, for sure. However, if you really want the large swings for your company, you want things to improve dramatically and quickly, focus on the areas that need the most help. A lot of companies try to improve things that are already pretty good, which makes sense, right? We want things to be great. I understand that. However, the highest return is usually spent on the most shortest, the most recurring, the most problematic tasks, right? It's not spent, it's not generated through the most unique, the most impactful, the largest task, right? It's spent on what happens every single day. The things that happen each day are what make up our business. What repeats is what our life is made up on. That's why we have this for recurring tasks, right? Those things that repeat, that should be handled, that aren't being handled. And once they start to be handled, then we can probably stop tracking them, right? Happy days. Now, when it comes to that time, right? If that take 2 weeks, I would probably track things for at least 3 weeks before I make a judgment call. And I would also be tracking the total throughput of the whole company as well, which you can do right here at the end of each week, right? You know, Monday morning looks pretty average on this date here, right? When Tuesday as well, pretty average, right? So on and so on. It really gives you a good overview. And again, to mark something complete, you just enter in AX. To mark it incomplete, we enter in a dash, and that will automatically update that here. And if there's no process to be ran on that day, we can just delete that. And that's pretty much it. So I would suggest tracking things for at least 3 weeks. I wouldn't track it more than 8 weeks. I think pretty quickly you will have your signal on what has to be improved. Although this tracker does extend out to 8 weeks. Great. If you need a new tracker to set up some new team members, you can of course come to the attached PDF, come down here to page number 6 and grab your free tool from there. And then if you need to set up a new team member to be tracked and you're already at week 5, you can, if there's room here, right, assuming that these weren't filled in, you can set up a new one for your leadership team. Excuse my lack of capitalization there. And you can then put in your tasks from there, right? So you don't have to set up a whole new sheet each time to track someone new. You can start from wherever and start putting in their tasks from there. Or you can, of course, duplicate the sheet, right? If you want to duplicate that sheet, delete everyone's name, delete the tracking for each week, then it's very easy to as well. So it is quite flexible. And of course, if you need to update these up here, you scroll all the way down to the first week, click on it, change it to today's date, and that will automatically update everything, right? So if it was, let's say, June the 18th, 19th, 20th, that will automatically update from there. But you would make sure that this is of course the start of a new week, so it would be Monday the 2nd. Right, there we go. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, so on and so on. I probably should have shown you that at the start. However, if you've watched this all the way through, there it is for you as well. And that's pretty much it. So play around with it. Let me know if you need any help. If you do want help developing your systems and processes so that you're not reliant on team meetings or so that you're not reliant on hiring A players or team training, right? All of these are signals that the company hasn't got systems or processes in play. Because ideally, anyone should be able to plug into your company, regardless of skill set, use that process, which should give them the skill set and complete any task. And we've seen this to be true across the most complex of industries. Accountants, lawyers, construction, engineers, architects, right, trading. The most complex and highly skilled industries can be systemized. Believe me, we have seen it across over 100 industries. And if this sounds helpful and you want more of these tools, we have a plethora of them for you in our resource library, which we provide to our clients when they enroll. And during our launch call, we will start to we will start to plug and play those processes into their company so that they can see a immediate return. So if you want to grow or scale, or you want to take time off from your company and not have everything collapse under its own weight, or you want to simply sell the company in the future, or try to make things easier for yourself so you're not doing everything, please do schedule a call. It is our job to help out. There should be a calendar link underneath this training video. Otherwise, I hope you enjoy this tool. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to email us at support@systemsandteams.com, and yeah, I'll be happy to help you out. But hopefully, I'll be talking to you on a call very soon.